Morning, everybody. So the subject today was on treasure, and there's some things that got put on my heart about this. And honestly, I'm going to make it personal because I take this subject really personal. There's two ways of looking at treasure. One is people, places, and things. I treasure Asheville. I treasure my family. I treasure heirlooms. I treasure what my parents have given me. But treasure is also a verb, an action word. And a lot of us walk by and don't really use our action to be able to drive our treasure. So that's really what I want to be able to talk about today. But before I get into that, I want to recognize one of the greatest treasures I have in my life, my daughter, Lisa. She is a local artist, multiple big crafty vendor, and just all around badass. I'm just so proud of her. It's one of the things that I treasure in my life is being able to rebuild a relationship with her. Where for decades I'm running around doing 70-hour weeks and not being there and having the luxury of being able to really get close to her over time and to be able to support what she's doing. The idea of treasure is different for all of us. And what we treasure, I'm going to talk about, changes over time. The other thing I'm going to talk about is treasure is something you got to own. Nobody can fight for that treasure, for your treasure, but you. And if you let them do that, you're going to be missing out something in life. But one of the things I know about human beings is what we focus on, we manifest. We bring into light. So you can look at treasure and say, well, I treasure this, or you can look at treasure and to be able to move forward and say, I treasure this, and bring that to life. And I'm a big believer in the power of the latter, of being able to make that happen, because it's a cycle. The more you treasure, the more treasure you're able to receive. And aiming that big cannon is a real important part of life. So one of the things that I was taught that I really believe in is being honest with yourself around what you treasure. Because there's things we tell ourselves in our head that we care about, and there's things we really care about. And one of the things that was shared to me is, show me your bank account, show me your calendar, and I'll show you what's important to you. And it's a good way of stripping everything away and saying, where do I put my time and treasure? Where do I put my energy? Where do I put my money? Where do I contribute? One of the things that I found, because I had a career in human resources, is that one of the biggest lies that's been foisted upon us as a society that screws with people's heads is that you can have it all. I don't believe you can have it all. I think there are choices and there are consequences. And when you think you can have it all, you feel like a failure because one of those things isn't working ideally the way you'd want it to. The way it was taught to me is to look at it as if you have a stove with 4 burners, there's only so much gas coming into that stove. And you need to constantly decide where you want to put that gas, which burner, family, work, career, community, whatever it might be. And that is an ongoing process. It's not something that you do once. So I want to give you some examples of that. So Caroline Krupe, who is our assistant executive director at Arts AVL, has just had a baby. So you have somebody that's hard charging, is able to go in to get things done, and now all of a sudden she has a baby. Her husband, Daniel, who runs a symphony, now has the huge obstacle, right while that's happening, of the Wortham being shut down for a period of time and trying to figure out what to be able to do with the symphony. And what a nightmare. Their burners get adjusted. They're conscious about what it is that they're doing. Artists in our community, I know this from talking with Lisa, and I know from the Arts AVL how many people are in this boat. Artists are juggling. How much time do I spend in developing my art, making a living so I can support myself and move forward, and other activities I have in my life? And that juggling is getting harder. As costs go up in this community, it gets harder. But those are burners. Look at them as burners. If you looked at it as, I can do everything, you're going to set yourself up for failure and feeling like you did something wrong. One of the examples I have is Katie Cornell. So I've had the joy of working with her for 6 years and supporting what she's doing at Arts AVL. And here's a woman that had kids and had a relatively contained, predictable life. And then she took over executive director of this beast that we call Arts AVL. and conducted a massive turnaround and really completely redid, with the support of others and now with staff, Rebecca and Caroline, to be able to take us so that we really have an impact in the community. She had to do some major burner changing during that period of time. And now it's at a phase where you go back and look at those burners and say, what do I do and how do I manage that? How do I pull it together? I know somebody in here that I won't mention that had a really strong career, really important position, really valuable about what they do, and they had a relative that got sick and had to decide to pull back hours, take a lesser position, and to be able to care for that relative. Treasure, that's A, knowing where your treasure is, and B, managing your burners. So I would just encourage you to keep that in mind as you go forward. There are choice and consequences. There is no perfection. If you choose one thing, you're going to drop something else. Achievement was real important to me. I came from no money. I wanted to be able to make a mark. I wanted to be good at what it is that I did. But I paid a price for that with my family, and I'll be open-eyed about that. I won't make excuses about it, but I won't deny that that was a motivation for me either. But those motivations can adjust over time. One of the things that's been very helpful for me in understanding my motivation and other people's motivation, there's classic motivation theory called McClellan. And under McClellan, the theory is that there are three basic motivations for human beings. One is a need for achievement, the second one is a need for affiliation, and the third one is a need for power. And knowing who you are and who other people are helps guide you through life. And for most of us, we're a mix of those. So just as an example, somebody with a strong need for achievement wants to set and accomplish challenging goals. They take calculated risks to accomplish those goals. They want to receive regular feedback on where they're at and how they're doing. And they often like to work alone. Somebody that has a need for affiliation wants to be part of a group. They have a desire to be liked. They want to become part of what the group is looking to be able to do. They like collaboration over competition. And they don't like risk or uncertainty. Then power wants control or influence, likes to win arguments. They're competitive and like winning and putting points on the board. They enjoy status and recognition. But there are two types that McClellan points out. One is somebody that looks for personal power, that wants to be able to win every argument and kind of have dominance. And then there's the other one that is driven towards institutional power, meaning I'm going to use my leverage to be able to help my institution make a bigger impact on whatever it is that I care for. I use that in business. It's part of what I believe in the work that I do in this community. It's what Justin and Brandy do, of using these institutions to be able to drive results. It's what Katie's doing with the Arts AVL, not for us, but to be able to use the institution and make it bigger, stronger, to be able to have impact. So my majors are achievement with a minor in power, but it's institutional power and being able to get things done through that. So the couple of messages with this is, one is, these are all so different. If I put you on a bell curve here, we'd see all kind of different mixes of what your motivations are. And we tend to think when we're younger that there is a right way. There is no right. There's just, what are you motivated by, and are you honest about that? So an example is, I'm high in achievement, I'm high in institutional power, my wife's real high in affiliation. And I'll be honest with you, for years, we litigated with each other as to which one was right. I'd be running around like a maniac. She'd be like, what's wrong with you? I'd be like, why you sit still so much? Why don't you get moving? And over time, we came to find out that there was value in what the other one was doing. She's balanced me, I balanced her, and the people in our life tend to be able to do that for us. But when you come with an expectation that everybody's like you, you're going to run into a wall. So whether you're working with other people or managing other people, or most importantly, managing yourself, know what really turns you on, because I would rather pull my hair out one hair at a time than to sit in a quiet room and do nothing. Other people are very, very comfortable with being able to do that, so know who you are. And I look at Brandy and Justin as an example of that too. Very, very different people with different motivations, but together, wow, do they make a wall of progress. The other thing I want to talk about is what you treasure changes over time. This is, to me, a real big and important thing. I'm going to be 70 here in a couple months, and time has taught me that what you treasure changes over a period of time. So we all have life stages we go through. When I was going into school, first one in my family to go get a degree, went out and got an MBA, was just scared to death. All of my energy went into that degree. Then I got out, and all I knew was the academic part. I didn't know what I was doing. I'm in a strange new world. I'm trying to figure out how to be able to operate. I shift my gears into being able to build a career and then be good at what I'm doing, find my way, find my lane, and to be able to build on that over a period of time. As you get older, though, there's parts of what you need to do to be able to let go, because phases of your life come and go. As we age, we go through multiple different pieces, like the birth that I talked about with Caroline Krupe. That's a life changer as you move forward. Being able to understand those pivot points and adjust those burners becomes something that's really important. And the other part I'd say before I get into that is, one of the things that I think we don't do enough in life is to be able to grieve what we're letting go before we move to our next treasure. We tend to want to hold on to what it is that gave us treasure and not let go, while at the same time reaching for something different. So an example would be, have you ever seen the high school athlete that just killed it in high school and couldn't let it go? And 20 years later, they're still talking about what that is. Now, if that person would agree that, they would have had the opportunity to be able to find what their new opportunity is. If your hand's full with something and it's not open, nothing else is going to fill that hand. So being able to be conscious that not only will your life change, but you will have to have the task, if you're going to be effective in finding your treasure, of grieving and letting go consciously of what's there. So some of the ways that might work are, if you have kids, you go through this period of, man, what happened to my life? I can't go out and have fun anymore. I can't go to the movies. I can't do that. Now, if you stay concentrating too much on that, you're not going to see the treasure of these beautiful kids and what it is that they can do in your life and what they mean to you. And you won't be locked in. The same thing on the other side. If you're an empty nester and you lose your last child, they move on through life. You've done a good job being able to raise them. It's hard to let go of, I'm still their mom, I'm still their dad, and kind of being a helicopter when actually all you're doing is getting in their way at the end of the day. And the best thing you can do is grieve that and say, that is a chapter of my life. I loved it, but it's gone. I'm going to feel that suffering, and new things will come to me. My retirement story fits this. So I spent decades, like really maniac level work, traveling 70-hour weeks. I mean, just really nuts. I look back on it, I don't even know how I did it. And when it got to the end, it wasn't a treasure to me anymore. I wasn't having fun. I did not want to do that anymore. I didn't want to do that grind. I didn't want to live that crazy. I wanted some stability in my life. I wanted to be in a community, because as part of my corporate thing, is that we were moving every 2 to 3 years. So I never got to plant roots anywhere. When I retired and came here 13 years ago, all of a sudden there was this void. Honestly, I didn't know who the hell I was. If I wasn't that, if I wasn't this hard-charging executive guy, who am I? What value do I add? What does that look like? And the pull is so heavy, or was on me, that all I kept thinking at the time is, wow, I see why people put that needle back in their arm, because that dissonance is hard. And it took me a good 2 to 3 years to just let that go. Not try to replace it, just let it go. And then slowly opportunities started coming to me, and they catch my eye. Get involved with the Arts Council, get involved with Sound Space, get involved in the community. And all of a sudden the calendar got filled up. Not in a way that my choice, but if I'd have stayed in that mode of not grieving, I'd have never been able to see the path of what's in front of me. So I can't underline that enough. Another example I'd give you is I do a lot of work in recovery. My wife and I have a recovery ministry that we operate in. Drug use is higher than ever. I can't tell you how many people I see that used to treasure getting high, used to love getting high, used to have fun getting high. And then all of a sudden it's cost them too much in their life and they want something different. They want dramatic change. They don't want to be separated from their family. They don't want to lose their kids. They don't want to be in jail. They want to get their license back, whatever it might be. But they can't just move to their new treasure and say, I'm going to live a clean life with a picket fence. My credit score is going to be high. I'm going to have a car and everything's going to be okay. They first have to go through the grief of accepting the choices they've made and what they've done. And the ones I've seen that are most effective in their recovery are the ones that properly grieve that, because then the opportunities, it's like a river. It just naturally flows to you, and you block that river by not doing the grieving. Now, society tells us if it hurts, don't do it. I'm just the opposite. I totally disagree with that. I think if you're going to have your treasure, there's a task with being able to do it. Another one that's real personal to me is in 2 weeks, it'll be 3 years since we lost our son, Pete. He had a massive stroke. And the statistics on marriages falling apart after you lose a child are absolutely astronomical. But Lisa and Cindy and I did the work of just grieving and suffering and dealing with that. And most importantly, looking for, what do you want me to learn from this? What's the universe want to teach me? Where do you want me to be able to go with this? And what we've inherited as a result of that is a passion for life, a commitment more than ever. And Lisa talks about this all the time. My life is short. I ain't doing nothing that's not aligned with what it is that's important to me. And I'm making that commitment and I'm living on it regardless of, I may lose people, I may gain people, but that's the way it is. Smoke them while you got them. But if we wouldn't agree that with him, and you see so many parents, particularly with loss of a child, how much that can be able to hold you down. So again, I'm making a big case here for, if you want to grow, make sure you're prepared to grieve when it's time to move on to the next chapter. The next piece I had is own and stand for what you treasure. We're living in a world of social media where all you see is people's A-reels. They're shiny, they're happy, they're on vacation, they have their stuff together, and you know the statistics, particularly on teens that don't know any better, of being able to look at themselves and think something's wrong with them. But even as an adult, we have a way that we want to compare ourselves, want to compare our successes to other people. And these people may have motivations and treasures that have nothing to do with anything we care for. But we implicitly get in the position of being able to look for their approval. The other thing I would tell you is the more you stand on what you treasure, you're going to get dissonance. You are going to get pushback. You will get haters. And one of the things that I've noticed watching human beings over 50-some years is that the most successful people that are aligned with doing what they call success and what they want to do are totally aligned with their treasure, and they spend very little time critiquing other people or looking at other people. On the other side of the equation, the ones that I see that are complaining and judging and throwing rationale out on people and scorecarding them, those are the ones that I see that are being stuck. So if we're each individual, and there are at least 3 motivations of power, and we choose our way, that means that the other people with the other motivations are going to have some judgment on you. So the thing I'd tell you is that if you don't own and fight for that, if you aren't prepared to be clear about what it is that's your treasure and to be able to act on that, nobody is going to be there. And you're subject to the whims of other people's judgment. And when we grow up, we're always trying to compare our parents, everybody else. Is this right? Is this the right thing? Am I on the right track? Some of that is necessary, not once you've decided what's important to you. It's not necessary. So the last set of thoughts I had, and just kind of to sum it up, are pursuing what is your treasure. Treasure, acting on treasure, actually pulls treasure into you. My relationship with Lisa could not be stronger, but I also know that it wouldn't have got there unless I acted on that treasure. And we tend to look at treasure as something that comes to us versus something that we're constantly creating. And as a creative community, you would understand that more than anybody. Be on purpose about your choices. Be on purpose about what you treasure. Be clear about it. Act on it. Make sure your time, your calendar, your money, your spend is aligned with what that is. And be honest with yourself out there. There's nothing wrong with being off track. It's not going to be understood by or agreed by everyone. Grieve what it is that you're losing if you want something next. These seasons always change, y'all. They always change. They will continue to change. So having the art of kind of staying on that surf, on that wave, of letting go what you need to, moving on to what's next, the universe will put you exactly where you need to be. But not if you hold on and try not to get on the front of that wave. It's just not the way it works. And with that, I wish you a life that's totally aligned with your treasures. Thank you.